So the question is, what happened to the internet I knew? I didn't marry the head of Iceland, but I did adopt a very brilliant and disobedient child called the internet. And I want to go through and explain to you how it developed, what it was, what it is, and what it could be. So let's talk about that story. There were basically 4 threads involved. The first thread involved a vision. People had visions long before the internet came online. Let me quote one of them. I'll paraphrase. Basically, he said, "It will be possible for a businessman in New York to reach out across the ocean to his colleague in London, using a device no larger than a watch, and be able to transmit any picture, diagram, text, message, instantly, anywhere in the world." Now, whoever that was, he was talking about what we now call the internet. And how long ago was it? Well, it was this fella. More than a century ago. He was clearly talking about the internet. And the question now is, were there other visionaries? You bet. H.G. Wells, Vannevar Bush, Lick Licklider. I even had a vision before the internet was deployed at all. So that was the first thread. There was a vision, a positive idea as to what could happen. The second thread was, how are we going to make this happen? What technology do we need? And so I was across the river at MIT as a graduate student. I decided to look at what should this technology look like to allow computers to talk to each other. And indeed, I developed the model, the analysis, the optimization. What should be the principles? How does it work? And so that was in place. I published it in 1962. I went to the largest network in the world, AT&T, and I said, build a computer network. And they said it won't work. And even if it does, we want nothing to do with it. So that was their brilliance. And yet, as there I was with this great technology, can't implement it. I took a position at UCLA on the faculty there and began to generate some brilliant PhD students studying this problem at great length. That was the second thread. A third thread, Sputnik. The Russians helped us. October 4th, 1957, they launched Sputnik and were first in space. President Eisenhower realized we had been caught with our pants down and the United States was no longer leader in the space of technology. So we created, as you just heard, the Advanced Research Projects Agency to basically fund STEM technology, science, technology, engineering, math, at schools, universities, research laboratories, to build the capability back up, and indeed they did. And how did they do it? They would go to a great scientist and say, we know you're good, here's a pile of money. Go do something great in your domain. Doesn't matter what it is, but shoot for the moon. High risk, high payoff. You're going to have the money for a long time. We're not going to get in your way. And failure's okay, just go for it. And they did this around the country in a number of places. Now, when such money is given to a faculty person, what do they do with it? They support the graduate students. How? The same way. Go to a graduate student and say, look, there's a problem to be done. Go do it. I'm not going to bother you. You want some help? I'll give you some help. Organize yourselves and make it happen. What a golden era of innovation and creativity. And it produced many of the technologies we have today. And so that concept was there. And in fact, if you summarize what I just said in 5 words, it says, delegate authority to trusted parties. You know somebody's good? Let them run with it. Don't get in their way. That's not the kind of approach we see so often these days. It's constrained, it's narrow, it's short term, it's watch, don't fail, as opposed to this kind of open golden era, which in fact produced quite a bit of result. So we had that. Now there was one piece missing. I mean, ARPA decided when they did this, they were funding all these research centers. Great capability arose across the country, universities, research centers, et cetera. And ARPA realized we ought to connect these folks together. So someone sitting at UCLA could log on to a machine at MIT and run the AI programs there as if they were a local user. So at this point, they realized we need a network. Aha, we know how to do it. There's a vision. Let's go for it. There's one piece missing. The piece missing is technology really ready? Do we have the tools? Do we have the capability? The answer is yes. As you know, Gordon Moore, in 1965, articulated his Moore's Law, and he said, this technology is coming, digital technology is there, switching is easy, And so we had the capability now to implement the kind of design that we had in hand, that the visionaries thought about, and that ARPA needed. And so off we went. So UCLA was chosen, in fact, to be the first node on this network. ARPA got together, wrote a spec, asked for a contractor to come and do it. A company across the river, Bolt, Beranek, and Newman, was selected. And they were to deploy the first node at UCLA. Why? Because we had the technology, the expertise, the software experts, the hardware, to become the first node. So that's what it looked like at UCLA before the first node appeared. We had a computer, a Sigma 7, running a time-shared system. And in September, the first switch appeared. You called them a router, we called them a packet switch, and we're ready to go, except we have one node. One node does not a network make. Okay, so we needed another one. Well, it was scheduled that in October, a second node would appear 350 miles to the north at Stanford Research Institute. They got their switch, they connected their machine, and that red line is the first piece of the internet backbone ever. That's where it began. And it was running at a blazing speed of 50,000 bits per second. Well, let me tell you, that was hot stuff in those days. So now we're ready to do it. We're ready to test this network the way it was designed, namely, sit at one site, log on to another site as if you're a local user, and run something there. So this is going to now initiate at UCLA. There is the first piece of internet equipment. This is a military hardened machine. It has a unique odor, and it was from here that the first message was sent. A revolution began. That's the place where it began. What you saw, that big refrigerated thing, is what you call a router today. It cost $100,000, military hardened, but that was the first piece of internet equipment ever. And that's the room where it started, that funny looking room that I had to fight the university officials to get back. It was a laboratory for a while, at any rate. So now, we decided to keep a record of what was going on. So we kept this beautiful document, this IMP log. IMP was the name of the switch. It meant the interface message processor. And the most important entry in that log is the following. It says that on October 29th, 1969, one of my programmers, Charlie Klein, CSK, at 10:30 night, wrote the following note. We talked to SRI, host to host. That's the only record of the first message ever on the internet. So what was that first message? Was it something really good, like Samuel Morse, What Hath God Wrought? Or Alexander Graham Bell, Come Here, Watson, I Need You? Or Neil Armstrong, A Giant Leap for Mankind? Those guys were smart. They understood public relations, media, these guys with the televisions and all. We were just a bunch of nerds. We didn't have a good message. We didn't even have a camera or a voice recorder. We're just ready to make this transmission. Now, in order to do this, all we needed to do was to type in LOG, because we want to log in, and the machine up north is smart enough to know what we're doing. It'll type the IN for you. So all we have to do is type LOG. Now, this is a new technology with new uses, new applications. How do we know it's going to work? I mean, what's this packet switching stuff? So to be sure, we had a telephone connection from Charlie down at UCLA to Bill up at SRI. A telephone link. Think of the irony here. We're using a telephone network to create a new technology that was going to eat the telephone technology, and it has. So we're getting ready. So Charlie typed the L, and he said, "Did you get the L?" And Bill said, "Yep, got the L." Type the O, you get the O? "Yep, got the O." Type the G, you get the G? Crash. So the first message ever on the network was low. By accident. We couldn't have asked for a more prophetic, more profound, more succinct message than lo. And of course, I expanded that a bit later. It's lo and behold. Now it's biblical. Now get the facts. Lo is the first message out of UCLA on October 29th, 1969, 10:30 at night. You can amaze your friends, win some bets at the bar. Okay, so there we were. Now, the network began to grow. And the underlying capability with this wonderful funding culture was a world of trust, openness. I knew everybody on the internet. Free, shared, ethical. We behaved well. And so the network grew over the next 25 years. It grew over the next 25 years until we saw in the late 80s and early 90s, a few things had occurred. First of all, the dot-coms suddenly appeared. What did they want to do with the internet? They wanted email. It wasn't a technological breakthrough, but it was a very important application. Also, thanks to Al Gore, he created the gigabit backbone network, the high-speed network, the information superhighway, and gave us the capability for these dot-coms to communicate. What was missing was a user interface, an easy user interface. Along comes the World Wide Web, web browsers appear, everybody can use this thing, it's easy to use, and it began to penetrate out of the scientific world of the nerds into the world of the consumer and industry and all the rest. So it penetrated deeply. Now, we didn't see that happening ahead of time, and it was inevitable that it would. And so what happened? Well, in 1994, we began to see these pioneers. Early on, here's some of the early pioneers. You may recognize some of them. These people were dedicated to making an engineering system work. Nobody was patenting things. Nobody was owning intellectual property. We were a bunch of nerds doing a job, a difficult, challenging engineering job. And if we go further down in time, we got the launches, and finally we see the billionaires. That took 25 years, roughly. And things now turned from an engineering research network to a profit-making business. Suddenly, we noticed, or they noticed, that this was a money-making machine. And in 1994, the first spam email occurred on a broad base. That was illegal. This was a research engineering network. Have you ever seen the first spam message? Well, there it is. April 12th, 1994, 2 lawyers noticed that there was a green card lottery about to come up. They're going to tell you about it, and they say, come pay us, hire us to help you get in the lottery. These guys were advertising on our network. How dare they? Stop. Shame on you. Cease and desist. We sent so much email back to them, we took down their server. So as an unintended consequence of the first big spam message, we created the first denial of service attack. But, you know, so there it was. So what had happened? Our beautiful research engineering capable of magnificent things had been hijacked to sell detergent. That was the result of our great research. And things continued. We began to see bad things happening. Suddenly, the commercial world recognized that this research network, it's a wonderful shopping mall. It's a gossip chamber. It's a social club. It's an entertainment channel. All these things began to occur, and a big turn took place. And basically, the power of the network that we had created, which was what? To give an individual with a machine, a laptop or a PC, and an internet connection, the ability to reach millions of people instantly at no cost in time or money, anonymously. Everybody has a voice. That's a perfect formula for the dark side, which began to emerge at this point. We began to see things like the advertising, like identity theft, like pedophilia, and a bunch of things. But the fact is, those of us who observed at that time, and now at the turn of the millennium, we said, this internet, it's a teenager, it's behaving badly, it's disobedient, it'll grow up. So by 2010, it became a young adult, and it got worse. We saw Stuxnet nation states stepping in on other nation states. We saw, for example, denial of service attacks attacking our financial systems. We saw botnets taking down critical infrastructure. We saw AI being used basically to undermine democratic institutions. All these bad things began to happen. In addition to nation states, we saw organized crime step in, supporting international money laundering. We saw extremists. Everybody has a voice. Everybody's talking. Too many people are talking. Who do you listen to? The loud ones are the extremes. So we get extremists out there sending out fake news, false information. The issue of free speech versus fake news and moderation of that was a big issue. And so we began to see these things happening. We also saw things like Well, the extremists were really causing a problem. And the problem is, the concern is, that it's possible that the network will balkanize. Nation states are putting boundaries and walls around their internet, and so are corporations. We may end up with what's called splinternet, separate networks that don't talk to each other. There goes the capability of the internet, an open, free, exchangeable system. And we're heading in that direction right now, and that's something that we need to try to avoid. So the question is, what can we do? What are the possibilities? How do we try to fix it? Well, what we need to do is get all of the interested parties to collectively address this problem, not individually. Who are these interested parties? Well, for example, there's government. Government has a role. They can basically monitor what's happening and adjudicate things like cyber attacks, like piracy, like issues of data abuses and data theft. They can also provide a forum whereby the stakeholders can come together and discuss these issues. That's one of the constituencies that needs to enter. Second, the citizen user, all of you. You have to hold the web browser companies basically to a metric which talks about their bad behavior. Make them responsible for what they're doing. When's the last time Facebook asked you, what privacy policy would you like adopted for you? You don't get that choice. You're told agree or not agree, cookies or not. What are cookies? Well, 25 pages of legal gobbledygook, and you can't figure it out. You should be able to articulate the policy you want. Do you want them to read your email, to track your keystrokes, to look at your contact database, follow your web browsing? You should be able to say that in some simple fashion, as I just did. Easy to articulate. And the websites should give you a similar picture, easy to understand. Here's what we're going to do, here's what we're planning. And you look at those two, and either they match or they don't. They probably won't. So then you can negotiate. If you can't come to an agreement, you leave. How often do you see a public website telling you exactly what they're doing in a way you can understand? It doesn't happen. You have to hold them responsible for what's going on. Another stakeholder, the scientists and engineers. We have to begin to provide some solutions that can help. Things like, for example, why is it that data that moves across the network has a source and destination address? You know where it came from, where it's going to. There are architectures which don't require that. Giving that information in the open, that's a lot of information if the information is stolen. Another thing, advanced encryption. There's something called homomorphic encryption, which means you can store the data encrypted and process it while it's encrypted. So if the data is stolen, it means nothing to the perpetrator. These technology solutions have to come along. You heard about blockchain. Blockchain also offers a distributed ledger, which provides immutable and basically immutable and constant, guaranteed representation. These technologies are being studied now, and as one of the stakeholders, the scientists have to provide that. And the other stakeholder are the web companies themselves, the browsers. What are they doing? They're deciding what kind of material and information they're going to take from you. They decide. They don't give you this option. In fact, they may argue, well, I can't customize everybody's privacy policy. Baloney. They already are. The advertisements you receive are highly customized to every one of you. They could certainly provide a policy that does the same thing. And so these are the kinds of things. They also decide what's allowed on the web. They monitor and censor things. Why does that company decide what is allowed on the network? Why shouldn't there be an agreement in the community what's permitted? They all have different motivations, be it stakeholders, be it more eyeballs, et cetera. So we have to get together collectively. And if we do, with a collaborative discussion about these things, and hopefully provide a stable and a balanced technology and policy solution, we're not going to get out of this mess we're in right now. But if we do, and there's hope that we can return back to the internet that we had, then we can talk about where the internet is going. Because it's certainly taken a bad turn. Can we right the ship and bring it to a situation where now we can innovate in dramatic ways? And if you ask me where I see the internet could and should go, you're really asking me two questions. The first question is, what should be the infrastructure? Well, in my mind, as I articulated way back before the internet began, we should have an invisible internet, just the way we have electricity. It's in the wall, it's a wonderful interface, it's always there, you don't care how it's done, and it doesn't get in your face. Okay? This room should know I'm here. I should be able to ask, where's one of these devices? I just lost mine. I should be able to talk to the room. I should be able to get gestures and haptics and even brain interface capability, brain internet interfaces. That's happening right now. And the room should respond to me in the same fashion. And it should disappear. And what are the technologies behind that? Internet of Things is allowing us to put in embedded technology in our environment, in our fingernails, in our bodies, in our cars, in our rooms, in our hotels. And the second thing is basically intelligent software agents deployed in the network, customized to us, to our privacy and our desires and our needs, provide information to us. That will provide an invisible internet, which I think is the next stage of the infrastructure. But the second question you're really asking me is, what are the applications and the services that are going to come? And the best thing I can predict is that we will not be able to predict that. We've been terrible at it every time. Nobody saw email coming. It hit us in the side of the head, took over the network. Who saw YouTube, Napster, social networks, peer-to-peer systems, blogs, search engines? Nobody saw them coming. When they came, they were sudden, explosive, and unexpected. So what we can say is we have created a system which is guaranteed to continue to surprise us. And that's a good thing. It opens up the world for the coming generations to bring in their innovative ideas and surprise us with wonders. Thank you very much.